This is where we stopped driving the bus because we drove straight into the brick wall. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Starve the Demon, Recovery by Any Means Necessary. I'm Jenna, and here we talk real recovery. No sugarcoating, just trust, willingness, and action. Today, we're getting into step 3 of the Narcotics Anonymous program. We made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. If you've got your basic text and it works how and why, keep them next to you because I'm going to read from both of them. Now, step 3 is not converting to a religion, understanding God, suddenly trusting life, feeling spiritually awakened. Step 3 is a decision. It's a choice. It's not a feeling. It's not enlightenment. It's not emotional certainty. Just a decision to stop steering your recovery with the same mind that destroyed your life. Step 3 is the action of letting go of self-will. I want what I want when I want it. I'll fix it myself. I don't need help. Self-will is the demon that we starve. I'm going to read from the basic text first, chapter 4 on page 25. We made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. Now, in step 1, we admitted that we were powerless over our addiction and that our lives are unmanageable. And in step 3, we admit that we are powerless over everything else. As addicts, we turned our will and our lives over many times to a destructive power. Our will and our lives were controlled by drugs. We were trapped by our need for instant gratification that drugs gave us. During that time, our total being, body, mind, and spirit was dominated by drugs. I want what I want when I want it. For a time, it was pleasurable. Then the euphoria began to wear off, and we saw the ugly side of addiction. We found that the higher our drugs took us, the lower they brought us. We faced two choices. Either we suffered the pain of withdrawal or took more drugs. For all of us, the day came when there was no longer a choice. We had to use, because addiction is a demon disguised as a disease that takes away your power of choice. Having given our will and our lives to our addiction, in utter desperation, we looked for another way. In Narcotics Anonymous, we decide to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understand Him. This is a giant step. We don't have to be religious. Anyone can take this step. All that is required is willingness. All that is essential is that we open the door to a power greater than ourselves. Our concept of God comes not from dogma, but from what we believe and what works for us. Many of us understand God to be simply whatever force keeps us clean. The right to a God of your understanding is total and without any catches. Because we have this right, it is necessary to be honest about our belief if we are to grow spiritually. So again, honesty, open-mindedness, willingness. These are the essentials that we cannot do without. We found that all we needed to do was try. When we gave our best effort, the program worked for us as it has worked for countless others. The third step does not say we turned our will and our lives over to the care of God. It says we made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. We made the decision. It was not made for us by the drugs, our families, a probation officer, judge, therapist, or doctor. We made it. For the first time since that first high, we have made a decision for ourselves. The word decision implies action, and this decision is based on faith, which is the third spiritual principle. We have only to believe that the miracle that we see working in the lives of clean addicts can happen to any addict with the desire to change. We simply realize there is a force for spiritual growth that can help us become more tolerant, patient, and useful in helping others. Many of us have said, take my will in my life, guide me in my recovery, show me how to live. The relief of letting go and letting God helps us develop a life that is worth living. Most of the time, if you go to an NA meeting, it's going to end with that third step prayer. God, take my will in my life, guide me in my recovery, and show me how to live. Surrendering to the will of our higher power gets easier with daily practice. When we honestly try it, it works. Many of us start our day with a simple request for guidance from our higher power. Although we know that turning it over works, we may still take our will and our life back. We may even get angry because God permits it. At times during our recovery, the decision to ask for God's help is our greatest source of strength and courage. We cannot make this decision often enough. We surrender quietly and let the God of our understanding take care of us. At first, our heads reeled with the questions. What will happen when I turn my life over? Will I become perfect? We may have been more realistic than this. Some of us had to turn to an experienced NA member and ask, what was it like for you? The answer will vary from member to member. Most of us feel open-mindedness, willingness, and surrender are the keys to this step. We have surrendered our will and our lives to the care of a power greater than ourselves. If we are thorough and sincere, we will notice a change for the better. Our fears are lessened, and faith begins to grow as we learn the true meaning of surrender. We are no longer fighting fear, anger, guilt, self-pity, or depression, which are all things that feed the demon. We realize that the power that brought us to this program is still with us and will continue to guide us if we allow it. We are slowly beginning to lose the paralyzing fear of hopelessness. The proof of this step is shown in the way we live. We have come to enjoy living clean and want more of the good things that the NA Fellowship holds for us. We know now that we cannot pause in our spiritual program. We want all that we can get. We are now ready for our first honest self-appraisal, and we begin with step 4. We make a decision to turn our will, which is our thinking, and our life, which is our actions, over to the care of God as we understand Him. Which means step 3 is about letting something other than the disease guide the way we think, the way we choose, the way we respond to life. This is where we stop driving the bus because we drove straight into the brick wall. The spiritual muscle of step 3 is surrender, not defeat, not weakness. Surrender means I accept reality and I choose to work with something beyond my own best thinking. Trust here doesn't mean confidence. It means I am willing to try this way instead of my way. Commitment means we show up even when we don't feel like it. So now I'm going to read out of It Works How and Why because it breaks everything down in a little bit more detail. So I like to add that in. We find this on page 26. The surrender we experience in step 1, coupled with the hope and belief we find in step 2, make us ready and willing to continue on the path toward freedom in Narcotics Anonymous. In step 3, we put our belief in a higher power into action, making a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of the God of our understanding. Our will is how we think, our lives are how we act. So you could reread that sentence. We put our belief in a higher power into action, making a decision to turn the way we think and the way we act over to the care of the God of our understanding. Essential to working the third step is our willingness to allow the God of our understanding to work in our lives. We dip this willingness over time. The willingness we experience in our early recovery is valuable, even though we may be willing only to a certain degree. Although this may feel like unconditional willingness, many of us have discovered that our willingness grew as we learned to trust a power greater than ourselves. The decision we make in step 3 requires that we move away from our self-will. Self-will is composed of such characteristics as closed-mindedness, unwillingness, self-centeredness, and outright defiance. Our self-centered obsession and its accompanying insanity have made our lives unmanageable. Acting on our self-will has kept us trapped in a continuous cycle of fear and pain. We wore ourselves out in fruitless attempts to control everyone and everything. We couldn't just allow events to happen. We were always on the lookout for ways we could force things to go as we wanted. When we first look at making the decision called for in this step, we're likely to have questions, uncertainty, and even fear about what we are being asked to do. We might wonder why we need to make a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of the God of our understanding. Or we may wonder what will happen to us if we place ourselves in God's care. We may fear that we won't be happy with what our lives will be like after working this step. When we trust that there is growth in taking action despite our fear or uncertainty, we are able to work step 3. Even though we do not know how our lives will change as we work this step, we can learn to trust that our higher power will care for us better than we could. The third step is our commitment to our own emotional, physical, physical and spiritual well-being. What began in the second step as belief in a higher power can become a fuller relationship with the God of our understanding in step 3. The decision that we make by working this step and the relationship that results will revolutionize our existence. Listen, it can't be any worse. I was in prison. I was on death's door, okay? So it could really not have gotten any worse for me. This decision is easier to make than to live by. We can easily lapse into old behavior. It takes determination, time, and courage to change. Because we're not perfect, we simply continue to reaffirm our decision on a regular basis and then do the very best we can to live by it. Complete and unconditional surrender of our will and our lives is an ideal we strive to fulfill. Although we don't become perfect, we do make a profound change by working this step. We are making a serious effort to live differently than we have in the past. From now on, we are going to be practicing this decision, and the way we relate to the world around us can change radically as a result. In working step 3, we begin to learn how to stop struggling. We learn to let go and trust the God of our understanding. If we take time to think and seek direction before acting, we no longer have to run on our own self-centered will. Turning our will and our lives over to the care of our higher power provides a solution to the problems created by a life based in self-will, resentment, and control. The spiritual principles we are practicing will guide us not just in the third step, but throughout our recovery. The first 3 steps provide us with the solid spiritual foundation we will need to work the rest of the steps. We keep our initial surrender alive by actively practicing the faith and willingness required to work the third step. In other words, we've admitted our powerlessness and inability to manage our own lives. We've come to believe. Now we need to surrender to the care of the God of our understanding. This is a great little paragraph. It shows how each step builds on the step before it. We may find the willingness to work the third step by remembering where we came from and believing that where we are going is certain to be quite different. Though we don't know what this difference will entail, we know that it is sure to be better than what we've had in the past. We rely on our faith and believe that this decision is one of the best decisions we've ever made. Turning our will and our lives over to the care of the God of our understanding is a tremendous decision. We may very well wonder exactly how we are supposed to put this decision into practice. Because our individual beliefs about a power greater than ourselves vary, there is no uniform way to put our decision into action. However, we have found some ways we all can use to find a personal understanding of the third step. One is to continue our efforts to develop a personal relationship with the God of our understanding. Another is to give up our efforts at controlling everything around us. We relax our grip on the burdens we've been carrying and turn them over to the care of a higher power. Yet another way we can practice our third step decision is to continue with our recovery by working the remainder of the steps. Our sponsor will guide us in applying the spiritual principles of recovery, showing us how to shift our focus away from our own self-interest and towards a more spiritually centered life. As we get ready to make this decision, we talk with our sponsor, go to step meetings, and take the opportunity to share about it with other members. I like that advice. My sponsor always told me, first of all, every day that you used, which for me was every day that ended in Y, for as many days as you use, that's as many meetings a week that you need. There's many different types of meetings. At least one speaker meet a week. At least one step meeting a week. One open discussion meeting a week. At least one literature meeting a week, right? It's 4. Right there. And then whatever other meetings you get throughout the week. Really like literature meetings, which basically you'll find you do just this. You go around the table, you read one or another of the books, and you share about your experience, strength, and hope related to what you just read. Step meetings are just that. You sit around with a group of people and you go over the steps and how to work them and how to implement them into your life. Speaker meeting is somebody standing up and telling you their story. An open discussion, generally there's a topic and everybody talks about whatever that topic is. We gather as much knowledge, insight, and experience as we can from these sources, and then we make our own decision. No one can do it for us. We must consciously decide to do this for ourselves. Your recovery is your responsibility. Of course, this is not a decision we make solely with our intellect. In truth, this is a choice we must make with our hearts. a decision based much more in feeling and desire than in deliberate reasoning. Though the path from mind to heart seems a difficult one, formally working this step with our sponsor seems to help us make this decision a part of who we are. The search for a God of our own understanding is one of the most important efforts we will undertake in our recovery. We have complete personal choice and freedom in how we understand our higher power. We can each find a higher power that does for us what we cannot do for ourselves. Because we are powerless over our addiction, we need a power greater than ourselves to help us. Just as our freedom to have a God of our own understanding is unlimited, so is our freedom to communicate with our higher power in whatever ways work for us. Anytime we communicate with our higher power, whether it's simply with our thoughts or aloud at the close of a meeting, we are praying. Most of us ask our higher power for a direction on a daily basis. Our relationship with our higher power grows stronger as we practice faith. In our experience, talking to a power greater than ourselves works. When we are having trouble in a particular area of our lives or when we feel unable to stay clean, our higher power can help. We only need to ask. With our prayers, we ask a power greater than ourselves to care for us. Each time we take this action, we strengthen our faith and our decision to rely on our higher power. Step 3 doesn't free us from having to take action, but it does liberate us from excessive worry about the results. I love that. I have often said, we're here to do God's work, not his job. We do the next right thing and we leave the results up to the higher power. I can't know what it's going to be, but I know that if I live by my spiritual principles and I do the next right thing, that it's all going to work out. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to work out the way I want it to, but it is going to work out. If we want something, a job, an education, recovery, we have to make the effort to get it. Our higher power will take care of our spiritual needs, but we need to participate in our own lives. We can't simply sit back and expect God to do everything. We are responsible for our recovery. Our lives are meant to be lived. No matter how sincere our efforts at turning it over, we will make mistakes, wander off course, and experience moments of doubt. However, with each setback, we are given a new opportunity to renew our commitment to live by spiritual principles. Part of the process of surrendering to God's will is to surrender to spiritual principles such as honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness, trust, and faith. We try to align our actions with what we believe our higher power would want for us, and then we deal with life as it happens. We may hesitate to work step 3 in all areas of our lives, especially in matters we want to control. Our experience has been that we tend to hold on to certain areas. Perhaps we think, I can control my finances just fine, or my relationship is working, why do I need to turn that over to the care of my higher power? Working step 3 only in certain areas of our lives short circuits our spiritual development. We have found that our recovery benefits when we practice the principle of surrender to the best of our ability in all areas of our lives. We strive to work this step thoroughly. We begin to see positive results from the decisions we have made. We begin to notice changes. While the circumstances of our lives may not change, the way we deal with those circumstances does. The way that we handle things, the sky's still going to be blue, the grass is still going to be green, but now we can see the beautiful eyes. Because we have made the decision to allow spiritual principles to work in our lives, we may notice a sense of relief. We are relieved of a burden we've carried far too long, need to control everything and everyone. We begin to react differently to situations and people around us. As we gain acceptance, we cease to struggle against life on life's terms, striving to maintain and build on our surrender. We are better able to live and enjoy life in the moment. For some of us, deciding to turn our will and lives over to the care of the God of our understanding is a process, not an event. However, in making that decision, we do make a commitment to practice this step in our lives. When we are tempted to manipulate a situation, we recall the decision and let go. When we catch ourselves attempting to exert control over someone or something, we stop and instead ask a loving God to help us work this step. Relinquishing control is not easy, but we can do it with help. With guidance from our sponsor and daily practice, we are sure to find ourselves learning how to get our egos out of the way so our higher power can work in our lives. Each time we are fearful over a situation, we can turn to this step and find the means to walk through our fear without resorting to our old ways. Recovery doesn't exempt us from having to live through painful situations. At some point in our lives, we may have to mourn the death of a loved one or deal with the end of a relationship. When such things happen to us, we hurt, and no amount of spiritual awareness will take our pain away. We do find, however, that the caring presence of a loving power greater than ourselves will help us get through our pain clean. We may find that we are able to feel our higher power's presence in the group, in our friends, or in talking to our sponsor. By tapping into that power, we begin to trust and rely on it. We can cease questioning why painful things happen and trust that walking through the difficult times in our lives can strengthen our recovery. We can grow in spite of our pain or perhaps in response to it. Recovery is a process of discovery. We learn about ourselves and we learn how to cope with the world around us. When we are sincere in our desire to allow our higher power to care for us, we begin to gain a sense of serenity. We notice a gradual change in our thinking. Our attitudes and ideas become more positive. Our world is no longer as distorted by self-pity, denial, and resentment. We are beginning to replace these old attributes with honesty, faith, and responsibility. As a result, we begin to see our world in a better light. Our lives are guided by our emerging integrity. Even though we make mistakes, we become more willing to take responsibility for our actions. We learn that we don't have to be perfect to live a spiritual life. When we work step 3 with an open mind and heart, we find the results are far beyond our expectations. As we experience this new way of life, we begin to realize that recovery is a priceless gift. We learn to trust. As we do, we open the doors to intimacy and develop new relationships. Where once we focused only on not using, we now can appreciate the many things that make our lives so valuable. We savor the laughter and the joy we hear expressed so abundantly in our meetings. As recovery becomes more central to our lives and we internalize the principles embodied in the steps, our view of the world changes profoundly. As our awareness grows, so does our appreciation and faith in our higher power. That makes me think of something. When I was in rehab, the instructor said, always be generous with your assumptions, right? Because when we're in active addiction, we always assume the worst. This one's going to rip me off. This one's out to get me. You know, the whole world's out to get you when you're in that state of mind. When it comes to your spouse, your siblings, your parents, the people that you work with, if you can be generous with your assumption that they are not out to get you, that they love you, that they want what's best for you, that they're not doing and saying things with the intention of hurting you, that really does change your perception on things. It completely changes your perspective. I have found that most things are not about me. Most people are not walking the world thinking about me. We tend to be self-absorbed. Even at our best, we are thinking about how whatever we're saying, doing is affecting our life, our loved ones, what I have to do, where I have to be. So that guy that doesn't use his turn signal, that's not about me, right? That's about him and whatever he's got going on, right? I too have not used my turn signal. Should that person have chased me down and snatched me out of my car? No, it wasn't about them. I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that time I didn't use my turn signal. Most things are not about me. So for me to get all twisted up about them is just a ridiculous use of my time and energy. Most things fall into that great big category called not my problem, not about me. So I don't have to be concerned about it. I don't have to worry about it. I could stay praying, say, hey, you know what? Relieve me of these feelings of fear and angst and worry and whatever negative emotion I got going on. Just please just release me from that and keep it pushing. And that makes my day just so much better all the time. Anyway, that's my little advice. Be generous with your assumptions. Assume that that person's motivation is not because they're trying to get you, and just forgive everybody. If we pause to reflect on our lives at this stage of our recovery, we will see that we have experienced dramatic personal growth. The relief we experience as a result of working the first 3 steps is only a glimpse of the growth we can experience through working the 12 steps. The role of the 3rd step expands in our lives as we continue working the other steps. Step 11 asks us to pray for the knowledge of God's will for us and the power to carry it out. Step 3 begins this process. It is here that we start to seek God's will for us. Moving from a self-seeking life to a life based on spiritual principles requires us to change profoundly. With the help of a loving God, we are ready to move forward on our journey. This is a 12-step program, not a 3-step program. The decision we've made in the 3rd step is perhaps the most momentous decision we'll ever make in our lives. But we need to work the rest of the steps for it to remain meaningful. There is more work to do. We have found that the spiritual path set forth in the 12 steps is the only way to recovery in Narcotics Anonymous. Putting our recovery commitment into action, we work step 4. That's going to be a couple of videos. Step 4 is a lot, y'all. But don't be scared of step 4. Step 4 is where the real healing starts. Don't let anybody fool you. So what have we learned? Step 3 is practiced through action, not emotion. Going to meetings when you don't want to. Calling someone before making a decision. Letting go of the outcome of things you can't control. Doing the next right thing, even when it's inconvenient. Step 3 is not dramatic. It's daily. It's quiet. It's steady. It's humility in motion. So here's some journal prompts for you guys. Where is my self-will still driving my life? Where is it that you just can't let go? You just can't ask somebody else. You just can't pray about it. You're just clinging to that control. What am I still trying to control that is clearly making things worse? So not just what am I trying to keep my hands on, but how is me keeping my hands on it creating chaos in my life? What would it look like to let go in just one area today? If I just decided today, I'm just not going to get twisted up about this one thing, what would that look like for you? What scares you the most about trusting something outside of yourself? I know for me, what scared me the most was that I didn't feel like I could depend on anybody or anything. I had to do everything myself or else it just wouldn't get done and I wouldn't get taken care of. Turns out that's not true. Thank God. Now, for your sponsor, you have a home group. Here's some questions you can ask them. What does God, as I understand him, mean to you today? Not historically, not the God that you grew up with, not the church that your grandma made you go to and used to pinch you when you got too active in the pew, not what somebody else told you that God meant or was or should be, but to you specifically right here, right now. What does that mean to you? What is the difference between surrender and giving up? How do I respond when things don't go my way? Where can I practice step 3 in behavior right now? These are great questions to ask other people a little further along in their recovery. So listen, if this resonated with you, don't just think about it. Act. Call someone. Ask for help. Do the next right thing. You'll feel the results later. The action comes first. So like, subscribe, share this with somebody who might need it, and drop in the comments what part of step 3 challenges you the most. I love y'all. Love everybody. Let God sort them out. Keep coming back. I'm going to keep coming back. See you in the next one.